Hello? Hello? Check. Yeah. Hello? Hello? Check. Yeah. Normally you should keep it here. You should keep it something here.
Good afternoon, one and all. Next, we have the plenary session. I request the dignitaries at the back to come forward, take the seats at the front. The audio system may not be very good at the back. The plenary speaker for the conference is a renowned academician, researcher, inventor, liberal thinker, and most importantly, a teacher at heart, who has worked in higher education in India for more than 3 decades. He has donned several important leadership roles like the Director, IIT Delhi, Vice Chancellor of University of Pune, Vice Chancellor of Bennett University, and Deputy Director, Dean Resource Mobilization, Dean Student Affairs, Head of the Department of Electrical Engineering, Founder, Head of Center of Distance Engineering Education Program, etc., at IIT Bombay. His teaching and research areas include electromagnetics, optical communication, image processing, antennas, microwaves, radio astronomy, etc. His NPTEL lectures are widely followed, and same could be said about his authored books in electromagnetic waves and transmission lines. He is a fellow of IEEE, INAE, National Academy of Science, etc., to name a few. He is a recipient of several awards like the IEEE William A. Sale Award for his achievements in engineering education, IEEE Undergraduate Teaching Award for his inspirational teaching, S.N. Mitra Memorial Award of Indian National Academy of Engineering, Ramlal Wadhwa Award of IETE, Vasvik Award in ICT, and the Excellence in Teaching Award of IIT Bombay. It is indeed a great privilege to have with us Professor R.K. Shevgaonkar to deliver the plenary talk for INDICON 2022. I welcome you, sir, to this gathering.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Deepak Mathur, Region 10 Asia Pacific Chair, Dr. Suresh Nair, Chairman India Council, all distinguished colleagues from IEEE Kerala Section, all other IEEE members and fellows, and the dignitaries and participants to this conference at Kochi. When Dr. Suresh Nair contacted me for giving this plenary, first thing I was really overwhelmed, and I'm really delighted, privileged and honored to deliver this plenary address. I was talking to Dr. Suresh Nair that for a plenary, for a conference which is having so many verticals, what would be the right topic, which will cover or which will cut across all the verticals of IEEE. And I suggested 1 or 2 topics to Dr. Suresh Nair, and he thought probably the engineering education would be a more appropriate topic for such a wide audience, of engineering. I chose this topic for 2 reasons. One is India launched the National Education Policy 2020, 2 years back, and there is going to be some impact of that education policy on the engineering education per se. Secondly, in our 5 or 10 years down the line, India is going to produce the largest number of engineering graduates in the world. In fact, there are about 1 million Indian engineering graduates from India every year, which is almost more than the entire population of some of the small countries in Europe. That's the kind of impact which the Indian engineering education system has. Question one can ask is that when we are moving ahead, how the engineering should go, how it is going, and ultimately what should be the ultimate goal of defining where the engineering ultimately should go. So I'm going to raise some of the questions here, and to sort of keep the perspective right, first I will just cover a little bit about how the engineering evolved over the years, right from the beginning of the civilization, and then we'll ask the question, where do we stand today and where we are going to go ahead as the time is going to go. So, if you ask, which direction should I point? Okay. So, as we all know, the engineering is basically a very creative process of designing under constraints, and that's what has been the sort of a definition of engineering. So, engineering designs the devices, components, systems to improve the quality of human life. I mean, that is the core. That engineering always does something which improves the quality of human life. And constraints which are there under which the engineers work, normally they could be technical, they could be economical, they could be business, they could be political, they could be social, they could be even ethical. These kind of constraints which are there. And technology essentially becomes the outcome of the engineering, and that's what it is. So if you look at the evolution of engineering, and in fact, if you look at the evolution right from the beginning, that time the engineering word also was not there, but the activities which you can call under engineering actually started almost 3,000 years back. You know? And all these monuments which you see, and many of them are from India, actually they are almost like 2,000 years old, which are there. However, that time the engineering essentially meant the civil engineering, or maybe metallurgical engineering, because the material which were required for these kind of structures, right, which were there. So if you look at engineering as a civil and metallurgical engineering, I think India has a history of almost 3,000 years. However, the other disciplines of engineering came much later, and I'm going to just put some perspective a little bit on that. So if you ask, before scientific revolution, what was engineering? And you will say there was no word like engineering, and most of the things were done essentially by trial and error. And that time, all these people who built these kind of monuments, they were actually called artists. So who built Taj Mahal? Taj Mahal is not built by engineers. Taj Mahal is built by artists. You know, that's the way actually it has been always said there. Word engineer came from the engineer, which essentially means by conceptualizing engineers' devices, and that's the word of engineering was coined. And skills of engineer were applied to the advantage of the society. I mean, that's the objective of engineering was. During scientific revolution, that is essentially about 18th and 19th century, that time the engineering adopted the scientific approach to the practical problem. Before that, they were like trial and errors, but basic scientific approach came essentially in 18th and 19th century, essentially with the invent of Newton's law and also the calculus, right, which started playing a role in the analysis and designing of the system. Engineers changed from practical artists to the scientific professionals, because you could analytically solve the problem, you could design the problem much more optimized way, right, and so on and so on. So the whole thing essentially shifted to scientific professional, as a technical training went to the schools. It did not remain with the artisans as it used to be earlier. And one more thing which happened during that time, and that was the information flowed through the organized channels like journals and conferences and so on and so on. So there was a free exchange of ideas which started taking place, and which essentially gave the growth to the whole engineering as a profession. During Industrial Revolution, that time the engineering really got the boost. And what do I mean by that is that first transformation which was required for engineering and which came, that was the change of the energy, the way it was used. So before the Industrial Revolution, the energy essentially meant the only muscles. Either the muscles could be human muscles or they could be animal muscles. And that's the reason the horsepower also came into existence. That power always meant by supplied by the muscles, either by the human beings or by the animals. The energy conversion, that took place actually Industrial Revolution. That energy conversion took place, and energy started coming from the water and steam. Right? That was first revolution which actually took place. And after that, of course, the electricity came, the mechanization came, the mass production came. And engineers as a whole changed to the conceptualizer and designer. What does it mean? That developing machines and product became a job of technician. So you got a sort of a differentiation. Earlier, those who conceptualized the thing, they finally created the machine, they demonstrated the machine and so on. During this time, then there was somebody who will design the machine, and somebody will really execute it and sort of implement it, which we can start calling technicians, and we created different cadre of that. The formal engineering schools were established across the world, and the workshops were getting called laboratories, the tinkering getting started called industrial research, the individual inventions were started getting called systematic innovations and so on and so on. Right? So this is the change which started taking place in engineering. Then came the information age, which essentially is the last century, where the engineering sort of evolved mostly. And that is the most transformative phase of human growth. And I'm going to give you sort of the discoveries which took place in the last century and before that. And research and development boomed in science and technology. So science and technology actually went hand in hand, and they supplying each other. So for example, the instrumentation which were required for the advancement of the science was supplied by the engineering, and the engineers started supplying basically the knowledge which could be converted into the engineering products, right, and so on and so on. So the explosion of engineering outgrew the natural science research, and that's what happened in last 50, 60 years. So if you look at the first 50 years of last century, you will see it was more dominated by science, basic sciences. Whereas later part of the last century, if you look at, it was more dominated by the engineering development in as a whole. And engineering then slowly got sort of shifted to simulated, to new technologies came, and aerospace engineering came, computer came, electronics came, telecommunication came, and so on and so on. Right? So that's the way the sort of way thing developed. So now if you really look at it in a tabular form, what is the evolution of engineering? You will see something very interesting. And that is right from the inception of civilization, which you can put 5,000 years, almost up to 18th century, hardly anything happened. Very basic things are invented, like levers or wheels or springs or screws, maybe gunpowder. Very few things actually happened in almost like 3,800 years. Then in 18th century, 17th and 18th century, the taking of the tipping point started coming in. And you started seeing now in 17th and 18th century, you started getting devices like telescope, microscope, thermometers, right, steam engines, and various other machines started coming in. And engineers started playing a role, more active role into the development. 19th century, of course, was much more than that. So you got the steam locomotive, you got IC engines, you got printing press, telegraph, bicycles, mechanical computers, and variety of things. And then with the 20th century which came, then the whole thing completely transformed. The basic principles which were there for taking care of the basic needs of human life, that actually was completely dominated by the luxury which was required by the human life. So you started getting the high-speed trains, the cars became with a better performance, the aeroplanes, the vacuum tube transistors, and variety of things started coming in the 20th century. And in the 21st century, just only 20 years are passed in 21st century, and you've got so many new inventions which are there. The high-speed networks are there, the 5G, 6G we are talking about. We are talking about e-commerce, e-medicine, online education, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, and so on and so on. So what interesting thing which you see is that this whole curve, if you really plot it, it is really exponential kind of curve which is there. And last century, if you look at, the technology development has been very catastrophic. Right? That's what essentially has happened. So some important observations that one can make at this point in time, if you really look at the evolution of engineering as a whole. And you will see, first of all, that engineering addresses the contemporary needs. Right? So first of all, engineering doesn't work in air. It finds out what is the need at that point of the society, and then tries to work towards solving those problems or taking care of the needs of the society at that point of time. Second thing which you observe is that engineering depends upon the available scientific knowledge at that point of time. Right? And this point is very important from the future engineering education growth also, that what that means is, if you have to really grow in engineering, the scientific knowledge also has to grow along with it. Then and then only engineering will keep growing. Otherwise, the engineering will not keep growing. Right? So why I am making this point is that of late, in education, there has been a perception that the basic science courses are not important. Only technology courses are important, and they should be taught into curriculum. And I would say that that would be one of the mistakes which we will be doing as we move forward. In last 100 years, the technology emerged at an unprecedented rate. Right? And this point is very, very important because the technology lifetime essentially has reduced to only a few years. Okay? So what that means is that 10 years down the line, whatever technology is going to be there, it is very difficult to predict at this point of time. Just look at 20 years back. In 2000, somebody had asked us the question about the way internet or all this ICT technology is there. Would we have imagined in 2000 that we are going to be the way we are today? And answer is categorically no. We would not be knowing that this kind of technology is going to come. So that is technology lifetime is reducing. So the extrapolation of technology appears to be impossible, at most difficult. Okay, and this is the statement, not my statement. This has been quoted at the international forum by various people. So essentially the predictability of technology or the engineering which is going to come in the years, that is extremely a difficult task as that time is moving. So the question now is, with that kind of scenario which we are having in engineering and the exponential growth which is taking place, one can now ask a question, what is the engineering in future? How engineering in future is going to be? So because the education has to support that, right, which the thing is going to be in future. So the future engineering, first of all, will depend upon what the future world will be. Because the engineering essentially is going to address the problems of society at that point of time. So it will depend upon what the world is going to be. And the future world will be shaped by the present and the future technology. As we know that technology and the society, they are sort of adapting each other. So what the future world is going to be, it will depend heavily upon what technology is going to support, right? And the world is going to change. And this problem is a fairly complex, entangled problem, right? Because we are not going to say precisely go that way and that's going to solve the problem of tomorrow, because we don't know what the world is going to be tomorrow, right? So that is the challenge which the engineers are going to face. So first of all, when we talk about the future, since this is an entangled problem and this is related to engineering and technology, the engineers can create an exciting vision for future themselves. Because they don't know what society, the way is going to evolve as the time is going to go. So engineers have to really visualize how the society is going to be there in the years to come, and then they have to create an exciting vision for that. And then transform engineering education to achieve that vision. And that is the most challenging part, essentially, all the academic community is going to face. Because they have to first envision, and then they create the curriculum which is going to support that kind of thing. Build a clear image of the future engineers who are technology leaders, right? And this point I want to emphasize, because since technology is going to play more and more role into the societal affairs, the engineers cannot remain as silent spectators in the society. So up till now, what was happening, the problems were brought by somebody, and engineers were good in solving problems, so they solved the problem. Now that role is not going to be adequate. Engineers have themselves to assess, see the vision for the future society, and then solve the problems which are going to be faced by the society. Accommodate the innovative developments of the non-engineering fields. Because engineers are the good problem solvers. But problem has to be given by somebody, right? And this problem normally comes most of the time by non-engineers. By the other societal sectors, they essentially tell them what the problem is going to be. So engineers have to now interact with these people who are non-engineers and sort of define the problem, accommodate those innovative development ideas from them, and then try to implement them to engineering framework. Define ways to focus energy of different disciplines of engineering to a common goal. And we have to define a common goal, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So first of all, if you look at the development which has taken place in last 50, 60 years, I want to call that development as an organic development. What that means is, technology went on developing, people kept on starting adapting to that, people started using it, but there was no definite goal defined that we want to really go in that direction and want to achieve that. Things went on happening. Something went right, something went wrong. But they are still happening, right? And that's the way things are developing into the society. So first question is, should we define a goal for next 50, 60 years, 100 years, towards which the engineers should work, and the engineering education should support that? Okay? So that's the thing which we'll be defining. So nobody will deny that whatever we talk about, the humanity and the development, whatever is there, these are the parameters which the society should have in long run. What that means is, when we talk about a developmental index, the desirable development index is first the well-being of the human beings. Right? What that means is, the human being should be prosperous, you should be happy, you should be healthy, and they also should have the less time affluence. Today what is happening is, people who are having a lot of wealth, they don't have time. People who have time, they don't have wealth. And as a result, what happens, this combination, neither the people are happy, nor they are healthy, and the society as a whole, if you ask, we can call ourselves developed, but are we meeting on these basic needs of the human society? And you will see that every time the answer may not be always positive. Second thing is the community cohesion, which we have to realize. So ultimately, we want the world to be a cohesive community, and people should be living with each other with a great happiness. Today, I want to quote, which made by somebody, I don't want to quote who made it, but the quote is very interesting. The quote is, it said, 80% of the people today are busy in solving problems of 20 people of the world who actually don't have any problem. And this is the reality. What does it mean is that technology is now solving problem for those regions which are already well established, quite healthy, quite happy, very, very rich countries. Where the need is there, the focus is not really going into those regions there. So this is going to create a divide into the society. And will this divide be always happy in long run? And you will see already you start seeing the effects of that, because there are certain regions which are not really well taken care of in the society, some are taken care of, and then this divide creates instability in the society. So in long run, we want a community cohesion right into the system. Or what is called the disparity in the society, which is measured by what is called a Gini coefficient, that has to go down, right, by the usage of engineering and technology. And finally, the environment has to be protected, because if you have to survive in long run, we should be sustainable, there should be good ecosystem, and so on and so on. So whatever engineering path we take in future, these things have to be taken care of, right? We cannot say that we will ignore them and will simply keep talking only about development, right? One of the challenges which has been posed by the United Nations in the years to come, and that is there. So by the end of 21st century, these are the numbers which are taken from the UN sort of data. The population of the world is going to go by 50%, will increase by 50%. So today we are about 7 billion, is going to go about 10 point some billion, in the next 50, 60 years. The energy requirement is going to go up by 100%. The electricity requirement is going to go by 300%. And most of the things are going to happen in the Asia region, because that's where the growth is going to take place there. The natural resources are going to be down by 80 to 90%. Right? So one of the things which the last 100 years development which is done has put tremendous stress on the natural resources. Right? And engineering or this development took it for granted as if the natural resources are there forever and they are never going to get depleted. And with that, essentially, the development started taking place. Now is the time to pause and look at that, because now natural resources are going to be down by 80 to 90%. The food requirement is going to increase by 100%, right, in the next 50 years. And the water stress population is going to be increased by 200%. This is the UN data which is there, right? And ultimately, when you have to solve this problem there, ultimately who the people whom with the responsibility will come? Technicians and engineers. They are the ones who are going to be, because every time people will say, give technology solutions for solving this problem. So these are the challenges, right, which the community is going to face. These are the grand challenges which are defined by National Science Foundation, right, which are 10 challenges which are there. And you see, the challenges which are there, like making solar energy economical, manage nitrogen cycle, advance healthcare, prevent nuclear terror, advance personalized learning, provide energy from fusion, provide access for clean water, engineer for better medicine, cyber security, engineer for the tools for scientific discovery, and so on and so on. You will see at the moment, whatever majority of the engineering is working, none of these problems are actually on the priority of that. Okay, so you can understand this. So all IT and the way today engineering education is going, and everybody wants to go only towards the computer science and IT, those cannot solve any of these problems. And these problems have to be solved by the conventional engineering departments and discipline, right? So that should be kept in mind when we talk about the future engineering. So with this understanding that that's the way the world is going to evolve, and these are the challenges which the world is going to face in the years to come, is the current engineering education going to meet that expectation? And that's the fundamental question, right? But before we answer that question, let us have a quick look at where is the engineering education today? What is it doing? And you will see the current engineering education has become only silos. It has become very, very compartmentalized. Okay? So firstly, the students are educated now in a single department. Not only single department, the recent trend is right from the first year they want to even define their specialization. Right? That they want to work in AI, they don't want to learn general computer engineering. They want to learn only artificial intelligence, right? Or data science or something like that. So firstly, the things are getting more and more narrow, right? That's what is happening at the moment in engineering education. Engineering education has also become more teaching centric, right? What that means is the information has been provided to the people, whether it has been assimilated, it has been digested. I think very little note of that has been taken out. And just my personal example, when I was teaching in this COVID on online courses to people, my class size was about 200, but on the other side of the network, there used to be only 20 people there. And I don't even know whether 20 people were really listening it. They just logged on and walked off or not. I have no idea. Right? So what happened? Essentially, it became teaching centric. I taught the course, I gave the material, I disseminated the information, my job is done. Right? Whether it is really got translated into something, there was no great note taken of that. Engineering education, this is a very interesting quote again, it has come from one of the presidents of US. The engineering education has become teaching more and more about less and less until it reaches to teaching everything about nothing. Right? It's a very interesting quote actually, that you are becoming so narrow. And you can really realize that when you sit in the selection committees, even for the engineers and even for the faculty, you ask them little away from their own specialization, and they will not be able to really tell you, what that thing is. So the width is becoming very, very narrow. Notion that a person should learn that he or she needs to know in 4-year program. That's what I think the education thinks. And over the years, since the knowledge has been accumulated to a vast extent, compressing that knowledge into the 4-year essentially degrades the quality of that. So what you do? Cursorily, superficially, you know everything. But if you want to know something in depth, that in-depth knowledge actually is not been provided because of that. And engineering has become more model and simulation. This is more relevant from Indian context, that most of the engineers today, if you talk to electrical engineers, many of them have not taken the soldering iron in their hand. Many of them not even seen a chip, in their lifetime. But they can write a great program, they can write a great software which can work. But, that's the kind of engineers which we are going to provide, right? So I remember Dr. Mantha, when he was the IICT chairman, he always used to say, no matter how much you describe somebody to swim in a simulation mode, unless you fall in the water, you will not know how to swim, right? So by learning simulation, you will not be able to swim in the water. And this is really a truth, But engineering essentially is moving that way. There are certain constraints in our education system. One is, of course, the finance. You require a lot more experimental facilities, and because of that, you get away by just doing only theoretical or the simulation kind of work. And very little exposure actually is provided to the real-life problem, right? Because most of the time, you are doing only the textbook-oriented assignments, right? And the real-life problems are not really, you are not exposed to. So that's what is the situation of engineering education today. That's what we are doing at this point of time. Now, if you have to move further then, some projections people have made now. So as we are going to move now for in future for engineering education, 2 questions can be asked. One is, whatever is going on, right, as a market-driven sort of process, can we simply go on and make prediction that that's what is going to happen to prepare your engineers for that? That is one way. Other way is, envision the future and say, well, these are the challenges which the society is going to face in the next 50, 60 years. Orient your engineers to solve those problems and define the goal. So one is a simple forecasting problem. Other one is a path-defining problem, right? And we have to choose what we really want to do. Should we want to be only a spectator and a person who can do the prediction, or who can define the path, right? And that is something which is a choice which you have to make. So if you go by the first approach, then I'm going to simply predict the way engineer requirement is going to be there in the years to come. Then IICT made this kind of predictions. So this is a report from IICT, which said that in the time to come, you will require these skills, and maximum sort of competency which we require is the social skills, which is 19%, process skills, which is 18%, then you are having system skills, which is 17%, and then you are having the cognitive skill, which is only 15%. And there are so many abilities which the IICT has sort of defined. So IICT says that the normal curriculum which we are talking about, the content in the curriculum is not that important, right? Content has some role to play. But in addition to that content, these skills have to be developed over and above that to make it more employable what the industries are going to need in the years to come. Right? So this is just a projection which the IICT has made so that engineering institutions can prepare their graduates with this kind of skills so that their employability essentially increases. Okay? So that is one way of looking at it. These are 25 technologies which have been sort of forecasted again by various agencies which are going to occupy the engineers for next 20 to 25 years. Right? So you will see many of the things which are already started happening. The AI or machine learning is already there. IoT people are talking about wearable electronics, the big data, intelligence spaces, the blockchain distribution, cloud, edge computing, virtual and augmented reality, and various other things which I have written here. Some of the things are already getting into practice. They have been there. Some of the things which are going to come, right, as the time is going to move, because that's the way the industry is driving them. Right? Now, the beauty of that is that at the moment, the way the things are driven, many of them, into the society by the industry, the focus of the engineering actually has changed over the years. Originally, the objective of engineering was to solve the problem of humanity. There was some problem, and humans wanted to solve the problem, so the engineers were working on them. Of late, if you really look at last 20, 30 years, the whole engineering has become market-driven. What that means is, you are convinced that this is your necessity, and then somebody solves the problem and makes money out of that. Okay? Take, for example, your internet technology, which is there, which has become so pervasive when people started using it. Many of the problems are created by technology. And now there are many of the issues are related to solving those problems, because this problem is created. So this thing, when we are talking about these 25 technologies which are there, when they are going to come into the society, yes, they are going to create some more problems also. And we will be busy in solving those problems which were earlier not there. They were created by this new technology which are going to come. Nevertheless, since the market-driven forces are very, very strong, right, some of these projections are going to continue. Right? In the years to come, you will not be able to stop because the inertia is already there into the system. However, if you go beyond that and ask, how do I make something desirable and how do I define my goal and focus so that whatever path I am choosing, that path takes me to a defined objective. Right? And that objective is going to address the larger grand challenges of the society. Right? And that will be something which is desirable for the future education. So one is simply prediction exercise, other one is a more projection exercise and defining path exercise. And that exercise will be essentially focusing on energy, environment, global warming, sustainability, improve medicines, healthcare, reducing vulnerability of human and natural threats, demand and enhance the human capacity and joy, and so on and so on. Right? So something which will go on because of inertia which is there in the system, and something now engineers can define with these kind of objectives which are defined by the grand challenges, and start working towards that and start designing the program which are going to address these kind of issues. So firstly, you will require in the time to come, you will require the global engineers, the influence of global changes people should be aware of. Right? So it is not only instrumentation and science, but you will require how to really be a global citizen. Second thing what you will realize is that the years to come, the world is flat now. There is no hierarchy in the world. Engineering is sensitive to the global issues because it has a common international language, science, maths and technology. So you cannot say that I can become engineer of a particular country or a particular state. The engineer, once you become, essentially become a global engineer. And you can be placed anywhere, so you should be understanding the global sensitivity across the world. Multicultural, multilingual, right, from Indian context, and globally competitive but locally relevant engineers you have to produce. So we are not saying that you produce technology which is for third world country or for India. We are saying you should produce the technology which is of global level, of global standard, but that technology must have a relevance for your local community. Don't solve the problem of the 20% people of the world who actually don't have problems. Try to solve the problem which your 80% people have. And that's what the focus ultimately has to become, right, if you wanted to make our engineering much more sensible in the time to come. So NEP 2020 has highlighted some of things very, very vociferously. Right? For example, the NEP 2020 has put a sufficient strength on multidisciplinary education. It says that the education cannot remain compartmentalized, right? And engineering is one of the disciplines where the compartmentalization was much more. I think NEP is now trying to correct that in some sense, right? Secondly, the NEP 2020 says the education has to be learner-centric. It is not the teacher-centric. And that's where the digital education actually is going to play a role. So digital technology which we are using in education, it may become more like a core of the education system, because that is going to make the system which is more learner-centric system. Reforms in examination and evaluation, we have to create a new paradigm for this now. Because if the teaching learning process changes from the classroom to the online education to something else, the evaluation mechanism cannot remain same. You cannot test somebody's knowledge in 3 hours. So you have to have a different paradigm for how to really test the evaluation, or see how the student has understood the subject or not. Realization that the solution to most societal problems lies at the intersection of multidisciplines. There is no problem which is defined in the society which you can say the electrical engineering problem or mechanical or civil engineering. It is always cut across the disciplines there, right? So either you have to get multiple heads and put together, that's what happens now, but people also should be made aware. And in that context, I would say the earlier engineering program, which used to have a 2-year common program and 3-year then specialization program, in my opinion, for engineering, it was a much better path for engineers rather than right from year 1 you start deciding what your specialization would be. Okay? But you realize the multidisciplinary approach. Restructuring of departments, which is badly needed. Right? So that's why NEP also said, don't really make silos, create the broader division and so on. Flexibility in curriculum, that is call of the day, that's what NEP says. So students should decide what he wants to learn, and that should become more flexible. Ease in credit transfer, which has been mentioned, and all of you probably are aware of it. Concept of major and minor, which has been proposed, that you get into certain disciplines, and you can learn something else also in the name of a minor. Exposure to societal problem, which is a very good emphasis which the NEP has made. That means students are now required to go into the society to understand the problems and come back and then try to address those problems by using technology. Right? Something. Design thinking and integration of knowledge, I think these are some of the things which the NEP 2020 has highlighted. And I think engineers should really take up note. But the most important thing which the NEP 2020 has said is the integration of the liberal art education in the technology. Right? So what is happening over the years, that is in Indian education system, we have segregated engineers from the mainstream. We even created purely technological institutions even across the states. Many of the states have got technology universities. What that means is that the students which are there in this kind of setup, they understand science and technology well, but they are now completely disconnected from the remaining part of the society, which is much wider than the science and technology society. Right? So building character, ethical values, which is very, very important when we talk about any of the developments, and sufficient non-engineering courses in the curriculum, critical and creative thinking, teamwork, communication skill, science, technology, and society, the interaction, interdependability, and more important than that is the sustainability of the society. That should be made part of the engineering curriculum right from beginning. So today, when we talk about technology and when we tell even to the students, we never tell them what is the life cycle for that product. We simply say this product is going to address this problem at this point of time. We never tell what other problem this product will be able to create. Suppose it goes into society, right? Or will this product be sustainable if this product is there in the society for next 20 years, 30 years, and so on and so on. So sustainability is something which should become an integral part of our future engineering education program, right? And when we do that, then only we will be able to solve the societal problem. Then comes an innovation and entrepreneurship. So developing innovative and entrepreneurship mindset, I think it is easier said than done. Every committee, every leader says you create innovators in your program. Question one can ask is, have we got a curriculum which encourages the innovation into your program? We produce the engineers who have good reproduction capability. Right? What that means is whatever is taught to them, how well they can reproduce in the examination in 3 hours, that's what decides whether he is a good student or a bad student. Right? In real life, that doesn't really matter. So what that means is when we are designing curriculum, we have to create a free space where the students will have free time to really think, right? Come up with unconventional ideas and so on and so on, right? So that responsibility actually lies on the curriculum designers or the teachers or the people who are really running this kind of program. Then and only the students will be the future ready. Integration of science, life science and information science. This integration, whether we like it or not, is going to come in the years to come, right? And we have students must be prepared for that. Industrial mentors to incubate the innovative ideas, and that industry academia partnership we all talk about, that is there. And we ought also tell, when we create the innovators, we also have to teach them how to prepare themselves for the failures. Every time good marks and good grades is not really the success in life. Many times you have to fail something to understand the real problems into the society. So these are something which you have to do that. So with this understanding, then if you want to summarize, what are we looking for into the future engineering education? Firstly, we should be making our program multidisciplinary and flexible approach to address the grand challenges. Right? Not the very localized specific problems, but they should be addressing much wider problems. Sustainability and well-beingness to be the forefront of engineering. Right? That's what should be inculcated in their mind. Globally competitive but locally relevant engineers have to be produced. Right? Not only technically competent, but they should be also societally aware of what kind of problem your own local society is really facing. Technology enabled and lifelong learning, which again has been emphasized by NEP, and it has a lot of merit, that since technology is changing at an unprecedented rate, your knowledge which you are going to get in your programs, you are going to be outdated in the next 4 to 5 years. After that, what? So after that, again, you have to keep on learning yourself. And that online process, the continuous learning process, lifelong learning, maybe technology will be able to support actually in that. So you will require lifelong learning right into the student. So we should not be teaching student to the content. We should be teaching to the student how they can learn on their own something which is given there. And that has a tremendous impact on the design of the curriculum and so on. Then strong industry academia partnership, which we talked about. Curriculum to mentor entrepreneurship, that also I mentioned. Solid foundation with exposure to technologies. And today, as I mentioned at the earlier beginning also, that we are compromising on the foundation of our program. Our foundations are weak. Just take a simple example. Today, when we talk about any engineering program, we want to reduce the basic science courses. And you take computer engineer, you take even electronics engineer, communication engineer. The first year courses, if you want to sacrifice something, what do? The first course which you sacrifice is chemistry. The chemistry is gone. Second course which goes is physics is gone. Part of the mathematics is gone. Then all these things are gone, which is the foundation, which is not going to change, right? Then how the person is going to perform if technology changes tomorrow? So, I just lighter vein, not really serious. There is something called seventh Vada syndrome, very interesting example which is given by some spiritual group. And the example is like that. You went to a restaurant and you are hungry, so you want to, you order the vada. First vada came, you started eating. You are still hungry, you call another vada, you're still hungry. I like that you ate 6 vadas, and after that you are full. So, after 7th vada, you are full, so you are very happy. Now, you call the waiter and argue with him. Why didn't you give me the 7th vada in the first place? Which quenched my hunger? You cheated me by giving 6 vadas. Our education system today essentially is working with that. Industries, all the people, they are thinking the top level which is offered in the final year courses are the important courses, and that makes them more employable. Unfortunately not. Unfortunately, the foundation courses are the one, that is the knowledge which is going to be time invariant. That is the knowledge which is going to let them sustain for next 50 years, 100 years. Technology will come and go, but the basic foundation of physics will not change. Basic foundation of mathematics will not change. Basic foundation of chemistry will not change. And that's where we should be really focusing on with giving exposure to technology. Don't teach only technology, at the higher level in the years to come if you wanted to keep them sort of valuable for time to come. Integration of liberal arts for the holistic development, that is really call of the day so that you really become a good citizen and a good engineer. And prepare engineers to play a greater role in policy making. So as I mentioned, engineers cannot remain now a silent spectator. They should start playing a dynamic role into the policy making because they understand society. Right? They will know impact of technology on the society and they can really develop the proper policies in the camp. I love the motto of IEEE, advancing technology for humanity. I would like to tweak that motto a little bit. I would say advancing technology for sustainable humanity. Right? Only humanity is not enough at this point of time because the way we are moving, our sustainability is in question. Right? And in the years to come, if we don't address the sustainability issue, right, no matter how much technology we develop, right, that will not create a very healthy, happy society in the years to come. So thank you very much. I'll stop at this point, and if you have any questions, I can answer them. Thank you.
So your talk was really profound and thought-provoking, how to create engineers for the future challenges. So I'm sure there must be some inquiry in the audience.
Okay, yeah.
My name is Manoj. I'm a professor with IIS Trivandrum. My question is about the point that you mentioned about global multilingual engineering. So now India is actually introducing engineering education. India is now introducing engineering education in local languages. So what are the pros and cons of introducing engineering education in local languages? Do you have any comments on that?
I didn't understand the point. Please.
Sir, this is about the engineering education in local languages. So, what are the pros and cons of doing that?
Right. Okay, so yeah, that's a good controversial question. So I think that's a very controversial question, right? And normally I should not be answering controversial question, but there are two ways to look at it. One is the people who are making it. They have an assumption that the better understanding can be done in your mother tongue. That is their first assumption. Right? Now with that, of course, you can learn the subject, So what they are doing at this point of time, when they are saying they are doing something in local languages, I think they are creating the curriculum and the books in the local talking language. That means every word which is science and technology word is not translated into local language. It is only the grammar which is translated in local language, so at least when you read it, you understand. Transistor is still called transistor, right? The TV is still called TV. So they have used the vocabulary, which is of science and technology, but changed the language which is local. With the assumption that this will make them more comfortable. And maybe true, if you go to the remote areas, maybe people are more comfortable with the local language. But eventually, some point of time, they have to really learn the language which is a national and global language. So maybe a few years of engineering, you can keep on sort of studying here. But you should make sure before you graduate, at least you are comfortable, at least in communicating with people in the international language, which is supposed to be in English. Secondly, you can read the books which are translated. But what about the journals which are there where the new knowledge is coming? Unless you learn the English, you will not be able to read the journals. So the contemporary knowledge which is coming, you will not be able to really understand that. So I would say maybe it is a good step to sort of mentor people who are coming from underprivileged background and rural background. But you also provide them support during that time of education so that finally when they graduate, they should be really at par with any of the national or international engineers. That's what we should do.
Thank you, sir. One more quick question.
Yeah.
What are the new teaching methods that will help the engineering education in India to improve?
Okay. So one of the things which I find new teaching methods is, first of all, we should make people aware, students, tell them the problems, which are many times the real life problem. Okay. And every problem in real life doesn't have solution always. So you always make some approximations, this thing, and then you try to find a solution there. Most of the time, the students are always given a problem ready-made for which the solution exists, right? We are tailor-made problem, right? But real life, the problem is never tailor-made like that. So they should be made aware of the problems which are there in real life, which are very different than what are given in the book, right? Secondly, the problem every time need not be solved by a single mind. Problem can be solved by multiple people. So a group kind of activity, teaching, learning, that would be a lot more effective, than that. Third possibility could be, don't tell them anything. You pose the problem to the student and you walk away. And you say, next time when I come and I'll talk to you, tell me what the solution you think could be. Let them do the group discussion and let them come up with variety of ideas. Some of the ideas may work, some of them may not work. But at least they will be forced to think something rather than you give them the ready-made solution. So just in that context, I'm saying, one of the problems with this information and communication technology, computer technology which is created among the students is the imagination. Earlier when the engineering which we used to do, lot of things we used to imagine. Drawings we used to imagine, functioning of the machine we used to imagine. Even the drawing course which we used to do, the projections of the objects which we imagine, three-dimensional to the plan, elevation. Nowadays, students don't have imagination. Because they can always go to software and they can see how it looks like. That's not correct. So for a good research, I always tell to people, when you are doing a good research, and that's what we should tell to the student, first you make a prediction, if I do this, that's what is going to happen, approximately, right? And then after you do it, then you ask the question, what I predicted was correct or not. If it was correct, that means your understanding was right. But even if it was not correct, you learn something, right? So that's the process which we should build among the students of inquiry, validation, coming back again doing inquiry, and going on this loop till you really see that you got a satisfactory answer.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, you mentioned that one of the grand challenges of education is about expanding and enhancing human capability and joy. So, what are the initiative you have to take to get this expanding human capability and joy through education?
No, so we can make a beginning of at least making people aware of these are the grand challenges. So today, if you ask the students, are they aware of these grand challenges? And you will see majority of them are not. Right? So when we talk about even the machinery and gadgets which are coming, right? Take for example the petroleum products which are there, the motors or cars. When the motors started coming in, have you ever imagined that the petrol resources under the earth are limited? No. We worked as if they are available infinitely. Now, whatever was there under the earth for millions of years, we consumed it in 100 years. Are we aware of it now? We should be made aware of it. Same is for the water. Same is for many other natural resources. So, even creating awareness that we have to work under tremendous constraints, and now these constraints are not replenishable. These constraints are there, which are permanent constraints, which are there, and unless you have an understanding of them, you will not be able to become a good engineer. So, making a beginning from the awareness, that would be a starting point. And then work towards it. Of course, like take energy, we started working in solar energy after we understood that the coal is limited. Right? And then we found a solution to it. But at least there was the awareness which was created that these resources are limited. And then we started working.
Sir, I am one of your students in IIT Bombay 30 years back. Thank you very much for your wonderful talk with the same energy and enthusiasm which I saw in your classes 30 years back.
Thank you.
Sir, my question is about, you talked about grand challenges. And at that time you said, none of these challenges are related to computer science. But again, you talked about 25 emerging technologies, but most of them are actually computer science topics.
Correct.
Why that conflict, sir?
No, there is no conflict. this is the 25 technologies that are predicted by the regulatory bodies. What they have done is, they have simply made a prediction that the way things are going, that's the way things are going to happen in the next 20 years. Right? So that's what I said. When we are defining future, we have to have defined future for two things. One is a prediction exercise, which is a fairly, the curve is going like that, I can take its derivative and I can say the function is going to be. Okay. Second thing is, the curve is going like that, but I don't want it to go that way. I want the curve to go that way. What should I do there so that the curve doesn't go that way? Grand challenges is that correction. Right? So as I said, last 1 century, things have happened organically. Right? Nobody said, you go this way. It just happened. But now the time has come when we should say, no, we should not go this way. We should go this way. And for this way, whatever changes are required, let us work toward those changes so that we keep that sustainable goal for us. Something like that.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, myself is Fawaz, Assistant Professor of Ship Technology, Department of CUSAT. Sir, you were mentioning about the basic science courses, physics, chemistry, etc. But the content delivery of the physics, chemistry, maths, sometimes history of science and technology, we had studied during our BTech period. But the issue I felt is that the content delivery was not able to correlate that with the actual engineering that we are studying. Some physics, chemistry teachers will come and they will just cover the module, and we are not able to, even the students, as a student, we are thinking that why we are studying this, and they are not able to motivate or stimulate our actual need.
Okay. So let me ask you a very simple question. You know, I'm now like a professor. So what is the application of Newton's law of gravitation? Can you tell me, when Newton's law of gravitation was taught to you, what was its application? If at that level, if you had asked me, tell me application, I would say there is only one application. If somebody jumps from the window, he will drop down. That is the only application, nothing more than that. But then you realize that is the law which governs the entire universe. Right? But to get to that level, you have to develop that understanding. When your mother taught you 2 plus 2 equal to 4, what is the application of 2 plus 2 equal to 4? Nothing. Right? But what 2 plus 2 equal to 4 taught you is a logical way, how can you combine two numbers to get the final number. So don't look at the content. Look at the logical development of your brain took place in those courses. So science courses serve two purposes. They tell you where today the science stands. That is one. Secondly, they train your brain to ask some logical questions and answer them logically. So later on, when you go in real life and try to solve the problem, you have never seen the problem. It's a new problem you are solving. What will see it through? Your logical reasoning, not the content. The content is available, but logical development will not be there unless you do these courses. Mathematics also what it does? Mathematics is don't look at only manipulation of equation. Mathematics teaches you precision. That whatever you are doing, you should be able to tell with great precision that's what it is. Right? So physics, chemistry, they tell you logical development. The mathematics tells you precision. And that's what is required in solving the problem later on in life. That's what it is.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Hello, sir. Sir, my question is related to the role of internships in this new education policy and the future. I just wish to add as a supplementary question, isn't the too much of internship, too much time for internship is diluting that solid foundation about which you are talking? Because now the industry is saying that every second semester should be an internship. So is it good enough for making the good technocrats?
See, the point is, anything you make as a hard rule is always a problem. So we should see, first of all, the use of internship as a spirit. What is the spirit behind internship? That you should be exposed to real life problems which are faced by the industry. That is the spirit. Now, getting that exposure, making something mandatory that every semester you should go for internship may not serve the purpose. So what we should do is, as an academicians, we should retain the spirit, where students are supposed to be exposed to real life problem. And with that, then you facilitate how really students can be sent to various places for doing the internship. Making something mandatory and forced on students is not really going to serve the purpose. I agree with you, right? But work on the spirit. The spirit is good. That's what it is. Great. So we have-
I have not seen any well-established universities like Stanford or Harvard or MIT coming to the universities and asking students to study in their universities. I'm not sure whether they are internationally accredited institutions coming to these colleges and attracting the young talent to study abroad. Consequently, I know the statistics of basic education. I'm a math promoter in Kerala. 10,000, more than 10,000 BSc seats are vacant in colleges, almost colleges in Kerala. I heard an engineering professor telling that within 2-3 years, we may have to stop offering MTech program because most of the students at the BTech level itself, they are getting very good job. So do we think ahead? You talked about future. Are you considering what is happening at the grassroots level where the number of takers is becoming sharply tending to zero?
No, so again I would say that what is happening in our education today, it again happening organically. And what do I mean by that is, today the herd mentality is that everybody wants to go, first choice is computer science. And he wants to go to computer science. But who created this scenario? We made ample vacancies available to people, even for non-deserving people to come and join this program. Did we put a merit saying that, no, you cannot come to computer science the way it used to be, unless you are having this much merit to computer science? No, we are not saying that. So the way our education system has evolved over the last 10, 20 years, we have created a surplus capacity in certain areas. Various reasons for that. One is low cost investment in those areas, right? Computer science is the lowest cost investment if you really look at that. Mechanical is far more intensive. Electronics also require a lot more investment. So capacity is increased. Then since the capacity is increased, and that is increased by the people who are not very merit conscious, the people started occupying that because of the herd mentality. And because of that, now the core branches of engineering are going to suffer. You are talking about BSc, MSc. There are now today, in this year, there is a situation in the country, the electronics, mechanical engineering, civil engineering branches are almost on the verge of closing. And the reason is there is surplus capacity in computer science. Would we produce the quality computer engineers? That is a big question. We may not, but we will have a number. And since the vacancies were there, students are just going there, right? So somewhere the regulation has to play some role. So we should decide the national assessment, right, which we never do, and say that so many civil engineers we require 10 years down the line, so many electronics engineers we require. And we will not create the capacity more than that in some other disciplines because we require people to come here, right? Given a choice to the student today, everybody would like to do only two things. He would like to go to computer science, whether he is capable or not, and after that he wants to do a management degree, right, for some institution and try to find some job. Does he get really the quality job which he deserves? Probably not, right? But this is happening again because the regulation is not there. And I don't want to blame anybody in this, but in the open forum, private universities which are now growing very rapidly in the country, the private university has no limit of deciding the number of seats in any discipline. They can decide themselves. Earlier, AICT used to decide how many seats are there. Today, these universities are completely free to decide. So they can overnight, they can change their entire program to computer science. Nobody can stop them. But then it is going to create a void somewhere in the years to come. So we require a more holistic understanding and sort of some mechanism to regulate this so that we will not be short of people which we need in the years to come. Right? That brainstorming is required. But your observation is absolutely correct.
Thank you, sir. And it was really a brainstorming session, and you may have more questions, but Professor Shevgaonkar will be available during lunch for one-to-one discussion also. Thank you.
Sir, I call upon Dr. Suresh Nair, sir, to felicitate Professor Shevgaonkar. Come to the end of this morning session. We'll break for lunch, and the evening keynote will happen at 4:15 p.m. in this location, in this hall. The technical session will be going on from 2 o'clock in the locations specified. Thank you all. Thank you, sir. So this way.